welcome to Online Travel Talks. Today I'm delighted to have Nicole Mahoney with us. She's currently in New York State. I always get that wrong. New York State in the USA. And hello, Nicole.
Hi, Julia. Well, I'm not far from New York City, but I am upstate New York in beautiful Rochester, right near Lake Ontario. And I'm so glad to be here. This is kind of fun to be interviewed by you because I got to interview you last time around.
You did, absolutely. See, tables are turning, got to watch out for that.
That's right.
Let's see. So Nicole Mahoney, you are from Break the Ice Media. You're the founder and CEO. And I do have a little short bio that I'm going to read. Let's find out all about Nicole. So in 2009, Nicole founded Break the Ice Media, a marketing and communications agency for organizations in travel and tourism and hospitality. And as CEO, Nicole was responsible for working with clients to understand their business challenges, develop strategic marketing plans, and also lead a team of professionals to execute those plans. Nicole also has a weekly podcast channel called Destination on the Left, and you also run virtual events. Nicole, you were recognized, and this also makes me laugh a little bit, as a 2019 Small Business Person of the Year, but I know you're not small, we're going to come on to that, by the Small Business Council of Rochester. And you also serve as past president on the board of directors for Tech Rochester, and you're also a board member of the New York State Tourism Industry Association and co-chair of their committee, as well as a member, and this also makes me laugh too, of the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor Finger Lakes Regional Council, which is a real mouthful as well. And I can see you've got your awards just behind you, don't you, Nicole?
Oh, yes, I do, of course. Well, I think it's interesting that how you interpret Small Business Person of the Year, because you're right, I'm not necessarily small. I often joke with my friends who are taller than me that I'm of average height in American standards for an average American woman. But actually, the Small Business Person of the Year award is for businesses with 0 to 50 employees. And it was certainly an honor to receive that award. Yes. And one of the most interesting things behind me that people always like to ask about is the album, the vinyl that's behind me. And the Visit Rochester Visitor Industry Council gives out annual awards, and they use records as their award that they give out. So last year we were recognized as a partner of the year for the work that we did to support the industry in 2020.
Brilliant. And can you, on this dumb question, can you play it? Does it?
Oh, I haven't tried, but probably. Yeah, it came in the jacket and everything. It's probably, I should put it on the record player. Good point.
Yeah, because who knows what music could be on it.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's a really fun idea, I must say. So we are now in month 15, or certainly that's how the UK sees it, of when we went into lockdown 1 and through this whole pandemic. And I believe we're living through history. So the history of the last 15 months for you, how's it been for you personally and also professionally?
Well, it's, I think like most, it's been challenging, but also there have been plenty of silver linings that have kept us going and moving forward early on. So for us, the date, March 16th, 2020, that was the day I went into the office, and our governor had said, had issued a stay-at-home order. I said, pack up all your things, take your computers, take your monitors. We're going home for what we thought was 2 weeks. Yeah. And turned out to be a very extended period of time. As a matter of fact, we decided not to go back to the office. Our lease came up during the pandemic and during the lockdown, and we decided not to renew at that time. So right now we're fully virtual and fully remote team, but we've been very productive and have served the industry throughout the whole pandemic, regardless if it was paying clients or even through our Destination on the Left podcast or other things that we do, really trying to support the industry as a whole through this, because we're definitely all in it together.
Absolutely. And actually we work together, don't we? Because you look after OTT's USA website.
Yes, and actually see, that's a silver lining, Julia. You and I met because of the pandemic.
Well, we did. We absolutely did. Yeah, and it's been great working with you as well.
Yes, you
so
too.
the good news coming out of New York State is that restrictions have really eased, if not gone completely. I mean, you can tell me. And it looks like over all of America, things are beginning to get back to normal, if not normal, in many places. So yeah, tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So being in New York State, we were one of the most restricted states through the entire pandemic. Which, depending on how you felt about what was happening around you, you either felt safer because of that or felt, more frustrated because of that. Of course, we all have the gamut of emotions as it relates to the lockdowns and what we all had to go through. But when our governor opened things up, and really, I think last week was the final lifting of some remaining restrictions, where my husband's a state employee. And so now even at the state level, working for the state, some restrictions have been lifted. It's almost as if the pandemic didn't happen, is how fast it just seemed to snap back. People are out. Some wear masks, not everyone wears masks. You go to the grocery store, very few people are wearing masks. What's been really fun about that, as long as we're all safe, which it seems like our vaccine levels, which is why he did this, are high enough that, and our positivity rate is low enough that it really is safe to be out and doing these activities again. But to see the smiles on people's faces, I go to the grocery store and you see it's in your neighborhood. So a lot of the people there, but you're just walking through with these masks on and you could never, see the expressions. And all of a sudden it's just so freeing to see smiling faces again, which is
wonderful. And so what's that doing to tourism? How is travel being affected and tourism being affected in that way?
Yeah, so it's opened up. I mean, it started opening up in the spring. People were definitely itching. Americans have been dreaming about travel for the last 15 months. Even during the pandemic, there was some travel where it was, less restrictive to move about. People did. But now people are really just trying to get those trips in, and demand is high. Where we live, we're in the Finger Lakes vacation region of New York State, which is a very popular, beautiful lake and wine region. And you can't rent right now a vacation home on any of our lakes, probably until late October, if you can even find one then.
Wow.
So advanced bookings are strong. I talk to hotel operators here locally. They tell me their weekend business, it's booked solid. But they do still have availability, midweek. So what we're seeing is kind of this reverse compression idea where people are now reconsidering vacations. Maybe instead of doing that 3-day weekend getaway, they're looking at midweek getaways, because that's when the availability is. So yeah, it's like the floodgates just opened back up. The flights, people going through our through our checkpoints at the airports, which is where those counts come from, have been steadily increasing ever since I think it was about May. And we're seeing, the latest number I heard was roughly 80, we were at roughly 80% of pre-pandemic in terms of flights. And what's interesting about that is it's not business travel. Business travel is not rebounded yet. It's not international travel, because as you know, Julia, borders haven't quite opened up yet. Yeah. It's all leisure travel. So that's really what's driving it right now.
Very interesting. So if you did add international travel onto that, you'd have even more of a capacity problem in the area, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just our area. Because of my podcast and the different associations that I serve on and the folks I get to talk to, it's the same story pretty much all around the country. Yeah. Certain areas like New York City, the more populated metropolitan areas aren't seeing as quick of a leisure rebound, but it is still, the numbers are way ahead of what they had projected in these early months. I'm hearing that, they had New York City, for example, and I might get this slightly wrong, but we're projecting they'd be at about 65% of pre-pandemic volume this year. And I think they're trending to be ahead of that. And that's without the business travel and without the conventions. So One of the challenges that we're having is workforce. You know, during the pandemic, 65% of the jobs lost in the US were lost through the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry. And, you know, bringing those people back to work, finding new workers, because one of the things that happened is people who used to work 2 or 3 jobs that maybe lost those jobs during the pandemic are reevaluating their lifestyle and how many jobs they want to work and exactly what kind of job they want to work. So it's not just a easy answer, let's go right back to work. And there are certain parts of the population who are still very nervous about, you know, the pandemic. There's certain parts of the population that were hit harder than others. And, you know, they're a little bit more hesitant about jumping right back into it. So it's going to take us a little while to get the workforce back. And so that's really created this supply and demand challenge. You know, there's restaurants who would be open 7 days a week who are now only open 4 days a week, or, you know, they close 2 days a week, or they're only open for lunch and dinner where they used to be open for breakfast. They're just having to shorten their hours because they just don't have the staffing.
It seems crazy, doesn't it? And
yeah, amazing.
so that's a sort of a double problem of job loss, but lifestyle change on a mass scale, all of a sudden, all at once.
Exactly.
I wonder if this will help younger people, though, sort of new entrants straight from college or university, to sort of rise to the challenge of new roles that perhaps they might have had to wait to have. Is that a possibility? Do you think we'll see sort of younger people coming through, mentored and developed?
I think you're right on, Julia. We've been talking and thinking a lot about that lately. And the biggest challenge for our industry is to educate those, you know, whether they're university students or even at the high school level, before they move on to university, of what the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry even is, what the opportunities are, and also the mobility that happens, because you can start, you know, as a front desk person or as a house cleaner, as a banquets person, and easily move into management, you know, with not as much education as you might think. So I think that's a huge opportunity, and that's something that the industry from all areas is looking at right now, as to how do we speed up that education process. It's always been something we've talked about, but all of a sudden there's this huge need to speed that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure online training together is going to be very important and part of that process, I would say.
It absolutely is. I mean, I like I said, I interview people from really all over the world on my podcast. And one of the questions I ask at the very beginning of every episode is to tell me your story in your own words. And so many of my guests say they stumbled upon the industry. They didn't realize what the industry was all about. And once they found it, they fell in love with it. Very few said, I went right to university because I wanted a career doing what I'm doing today. They didn't even know that was an option. So the more that we can educate, and online training exactly would be a great way to do that.
I think that's also why there's such a core of passion running through the whole industry. You know, whenever you meet anybody, wherever they are in the globe, we are very much united by that whole passion for travel. And, you know, I think that sort of cut us through the core, and that kind of is what we use. And that obviously comes out to the travelers or to the business travelers or to, you know, whoever we're helping. Off it goes. So, yeah, great. So are there any sort of trends coming through, like it's been talked here in the UK about the new normal, anything that you can spot that you think is coming up that's different, or you mentioned sort of snapped back to sort of how it used to be, but anything else?
Yeah, but it's not exactly like it used to be. So there are a few trends emerging. First of all, road trip travel is still, you know, a growing, there's growing interest in that. And most people who are booking vacations, even though the airports are back up to, you know, near or pre-pandemic capacities, a lot of people are opting for those road trips more so than they did even pre-pandemic. I think a lot of people discovered the road trip again, through the pandemic, and really enjoy that as a form of travel. So that's one thing. The other is still seeking outdoor, wide open space destinations.
Yeah.
People, especially Americans, are looking still for that type of vacation over the metropolitan areas, or they're looking for those bucket list trips. So if they are doing the New York Cities or the San Franciscos or those metropolitan areas, it's because it's a bucket list trip that they didn't get to. And we do have clients who are outbound tour operators from the US that send people to Europe and Africa and all over the world. And they have been seeing a big uptick in inquiries and planning and pre-bookings for future travel for those bigger, international outbound trips from the US as well. So it's all starting to point in the right direction. And I think, the biggest difference, which I said this before, but it's all leisure right now that's driving it.
Yeah.
And the business side and the convention side is still to come. A lot of the predictions say that'll start to tick up in 2022, but they're projecting full recovery not until even 2024 or 2025, just based on what's going on in business travel.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I know that you've put together a wonderful blog for us with some statistics and referencing certain things that you've read, which is really great. Thank you so much for doing that. So I would encourage everyone, if you want to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the USA right now, to go to the OTT news section, either on the USA website or on the UK website currently, although we may have it also in Australia and Germany very soon. And then you can read all about the USA. So anything else to add, Nicole, before I close? Anything you want to say?
Not that I can think. I think just the biggest takeaway as we're coming out of this, and I don't know that we could have done anything differently, but to be prepared for that huge demand. Even those tour operators I mentioned who are booking those future bookings for those international trips, they're also having to ramp up their staff because they had to let a lot of people go. And so they don't even have the travel planners in place, yet, as the demand is coming up. So it's a really challenging time for these businesses within the travel industry, because they have to balance, of course, their employees with how the cash is coming in, how the demand is coming in. And so, but I think overall, I know we'll rebound. We've been through so many other things in the past and have come back stronger. And I'm looking forward to a very strong comeback. And so far, it's looking pretty good.
Fabulous. Well, it's wonderful to hear about it, wonderful to see. And I know that the whole world is in the same boat, and we're all coming out at different times, but it's good to know you kind of give us hope as to how we are kind of moving. You sort of feel it, but we can't move kind of fast enough in some ways. So anyway, the future comes one day at a time, doesn't it? That's what we have to remind ourselves, and to live in the present. And but at the same time, look forward and plan for the future, which is exactly the message you're giving. So thank you so much for joining Online Travel Talks today, Nicole. Really appreciate it, and it's really great working with you as well.
Thank you, Julia. My pleasure.
Okay, thanks. Bye.